There are places in America where even the gas station attendant will look you dead in the eyes and say, "Keep driving." We're not talking about cities with a bad reputation or neighborhoods you've seen on the news. We're talking about towns, some of them tiny, where the crime rate doesn't just beat the national average, it obliterates it. Where locals have stopped being shocked by the violence because it's become routine. Where your GPS might route you right through, and you won't even know you're in danger until it's too late. Today, we're counting down 10 U.S. towns so unsafe that locals themselves say don't even stop for gas. Some of these will shock you. A couple of them might be closer to your road trip route than you think. And at least one of them is somewhere millions of people stop every single day, completely unaware of the real danger they're stepping into. Number 10. Anniston, Alabama. Most people driving through northeastern Alabama on Interstate 20 have never heard of Anniston. That's exactly the problem. Anniston, a city of about 21,000 people, has a total crime rate of more than 5,200 per 100,000 residents, nearly 146% higher than the national average. Violent crime sits at 845 per 100,000, over double the national benchmark. Your odds of becoming a victim of violent crime here are roughly 1 in 118. The national average gives you a 1 in 278 chance. Do the math. What makes Anniston particularly troubling is its invisibility. It's not on the nightly news. It's not trending on social media. It's a quiet, faded industrial city where the steel plants left decades ago and took the jobs with them. Gang activity tied to the Interstate 20 drug corridor runs through here regularly, and the police department has been stretched thin for years. Locals say walking alone at night, even in commercial areas, is something you just don't do. And if you're passing through, keep the windows up and your foot on the gas. Number 9. White Clay, Nebraska. Here's a name you probably won't find on any tourist map. White Clay, Nebraska. Population, around 10 people. That's not a typo, 10 residents. But at its peak, this tiny unincorporated border town was selling the equivalent of 3.5 million cans of beer a year, primarily to residents of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation just across the South Dakota border. 4 liquor stores, 10 residents, millions of cans of alcohol moving across that line every single year. The result? Streets where people were visibly staggering at midday. Assaults. People passed out on curbs. Reports of alcohol being traded for sex. Domestic violence and child neglect followed. As many as 80% of Pine Ridge residents were estimated to suffer from alcoholism, partly fueled by White Clay's unchecked sales. Activists called it the Skid Row of the Plains. State liquor authorities finally shut the stores down in 2017 after citing a severe lack of law enforcement. The physical danger may have shifted, but the trauma this town created still echoes across the reservation today. Number 8. Chester, Pennsylvania. 15 miles south of Philadelphia sits Chester, Pennsylvania, a city that Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro publicly acknowledged had one of the highest per capita murder rates of any city in the country just a few years ago. Chester has a total crime rate of 2,819 per 100,000 residents, 67% higher than the Pennsylvania average. The violent crime rate sits at 830 per 100,000, more than double the statewide figure. Residents face a 1 in 36 chance of becoming victims of either violent or property crime. Chester ranks 833rd out of 880 cities in Pennsylvania for safety. That's second to last. This was once a thriving industrial port city on the Delaware River. Now, abandoned factories line the waterfront, and drug markets continue to drive nearly 40% of violent incidents. The story of Chester is the story of post-industrial America at its hardest. If you're heading south out of Philadelphia and your GPS suggests cutting through Chester, take the longer route. It's worth the extra miles. Number 7. Gary, Indiana. Just 25 miles southeast of Chicago sits Gary, Indiana. And if you've ever driven that stretch of I-90, you know the feeling. Something in the air shifts the moment you pass the city limits. Gary's violent crime rate sits at approximately 898 per 100,000 residents, about 150% higher than the national average. The city records Indiana's highest murder rate at 29 homicides per 100,000 people. Roughly 59 crimes per 1,000 residents occur annually compared to the national average of 33. In the most dangerous central neighborhoods, your odds of becoming a victim of violent crime can be as high as 1 in 67. Gary was once one of the most prosperous steel towns in America. U.S. Steel built it from scratch at the turn of the 20th century, and at its peak, it was a city of 180,000 people. Then the mills collapsed. Between deindustrialization, disinvestment, and a shrinking tax base, Gary entered a decades-long death spiral. Today, entire city blocks sit abandoned. Meth seizures increased 23% year-over-year according to police data, and 369 firearms were seized in 2025 alone, a 41% increase from the previous year. Gary locals will tell you they love their city, but they'll also tell you, don't stop here if you don't know where you're going. Number 6, East St. Louis, Illinois. If you think St. Louis, Missouri is rough, and it is, then East St. Louis, Illinois is a different world entirely. Sitting directly across the Mississippi River, East St. Louis has a population of just under 18,000 and one of the highest violent crime rates of any city relative to its size in the entire country. The chance of becoming a victim of either violent or property crime is 1 in 38. Within Illinois, East St. Louis has a crime rate higher than 92% of all cities and towns statewide. And unlike the city across the river, it doesn't even have a tourism industry or an entertainment district to bring in outside investment. East St. Louis has struggled to maintain basic services for decades. At various points in its history, it's had its water shut off, its police force slashed, and its schools taken over by the state. Abandoned properties serve as drug dens. Gang violence is chronic. People who grew up here will tell you that driving through with out-of-state plates after dark is not something you want to do. Some locals say you don't do it at all. Number 5, Farmington, New Mexico. New Mexico has a crime problem that doesn't get nearly enough national attention. Farmington, a city of about 46,000 people in the northwest corner of the state, is Exhibit A. Farmington's violent crime rate in 2024 was 951 per 100,000 residents, 1,247% above the national average, more than 12 times the national rate. Property crime sits at 2,459 per 100,000. Within New Mexico, more than 93% of all communities are safer than Farmington, and Neighborhood Scout consistently ranks it among the top 100 most dangerous cities in America. Farmington sits at a geographic crossroads for drug trafficking routes running up from the southern border. In 2024, the city witnessed a double homicide over an $80 drug debt, and a separate shooting rampage near a shopping mall left 2 innocent people dead. Farmington's own police chief stated publicly that substance abuse and narcotics are the driving force behind virtually all of the city's violence. For a city that most tourists have never heard of, the numbers are staggering. Number 4, Deming, New Mexico. Stay in New Mexico because we're not done. Deming sits 36 miles from the Mexican border, right along Interstate 10. It's exactly the kind of place where millions of road trippers stop for gas every year without giving it a second thought. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous to be complacent. Deming's total crime rate is 5,602 per 100,000 residents, 141% higher than the national average and 55% higher than the already elevated New Mexico state rate. Violent crime runs at 899 per 100,000. Property crime is over 4,703 per 100,000. Your odds of becoming a property crime victim here are 1 in 19. Deming is a small town of about 14,000 people, isolated between Las Cruces and Lordsburg. Its remote location makes it a natural rest stop, but also a corridor for smuggling and transient crime. Strong Border Patrol presence makes it look controlled on the surface. But locals and law enforcement know the numbers tell a completely different story underneath. Number 3. Brookside, Alabama. Most towns on this list are dangerous because of violent crime. Brookside, Alabama, 20 minutes north of Birmingham on Interstate 22, is dangerous for a completely different reason. And in some ways, it's more insidious. From 2018 to 2020, Brookside's income from traffic fines and forfeitures increased by 640%, accounting for nearly half the town's entire budget. A town of fewer than 1,300 residents, with 0 traffic signals and just one business, a Dollar General, was generating $487 in fines and forfeitures per resident per year. Traffic citations exploded from 382 to over 3,000 in just 2 years. Police were towing nearly 16 times as many cars as before. The tactics were flagrantly illegal. Officers pulled people over on stretches of highway outside the town's own jurisdiction. They cited drivers for insurance violations even when documentation was right there on the dashboard. Drivers described being trapped in a system where once stopped, they faced thousands of dollars in fines and towing fees, whether they'd done anything wrong or not. An AL.com investigation won a Pulitzer Prize exposing it. The town eventually settled a federal class action lawsuit for $1.5 million. The police chief resigned. New reforms are in place. But if you're on I-22 and see those flashing lights in your rearview mirror, the ghost of what Brookside once was will feel very real. Number 2. Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, the city Elvis called home, the birthplace of the blues. And according to FBI crime data, the most violent large city in the United States. Memphis recorded a violent crime rate of 2,501 per 100,000 residents in 2024, 596% higher than the national average, nearly 6 times the national rate. Total crime sits at 9,400 per 100,000, ranking Memphis first among all major American cities, ahead of Detroit, Baltimore, Portland, and every other city on that list. In 2024, Memphis recorded the highest murder rate among America's large cities. Poverty rates hover above 17%. Nearly a quarter of children live below the federal poverty line. Memphis saw a shooting rampage in 2022 that left 4 dead and a kindergarten teacher abducted and murdered while out for a morning jog. President Trump has publicly placed Memphis early on the list of cities targeted for potential federal intervention. Even with a 30% drop in homicides reported by late 2024, the scale of the crisis here remains unlike anything else in an American city of comparable size. Number 1. Detroit, Michigan. And here we are. Number 1. Detroit's violent crime rate in 2024 was 1,781 per 100,000 residents, 396% higher than the national average. Individual neighborhoods go even further into the extreme. Belmont, Detroit's most dangerous neighborhood, has a crime rate of 14,048 per 100,000, 664% higher than the national average. Residents there have a 1 in 8 chance of becoming a victim of any crime. The median home price in that neighborhood? $29,300. Detroit is the cautionary tale of American deindustrialization written in concrete and broken glass. Once home to the most powerful manufacturing economy in the world, the collapse of the auto industry hollowed out the city in a way that still hasn't fully healed. Population dropped from 1.8 million at its peak to under 650,000 today. Tens of thousands of abandoned buildings, entire neighborhoods that look like they were bombed. While 2024 saw Detroit's lowest homicide rate since 2013, that rate still stands at 37 per 100,000, a number that would be declared an emergency in almost any other American city. Detroit locals are proud of their city, and rightfully so. But they'll also be the first to tell you, know exactly where you're going before you go. Don't pull over in an unfamiliar neighborhood after dark. Don't let your GPS take you off the main road into places you don't recognize. And if you're just passing through, keep moving. America is full of extraordinary places, beautiful, complex, and full of stories worth telling. But some of those stories are warnings. These 10 towns prove that danger doesn't always wear a face you recognize. Sometimes it looks exactly like a quiet interstate exit with a gas station sign glowing in the dark. So here's the real question. Which of these towns surprised you the most? Have you ever accidentally driven through one of them? Or does someone you know live in one of these places right now? Drop your story in the comments below. We read every single one. If this video opened your eyes to a side of America most people never see, smash that like button, share it with someone who thinks they've got this country all figured out, and subscribe so you don't miss our next video. Trust us, what's coming next will hit even closer to home. Stay safe out there, and stay aware.